So I don't really even know what to make of this, but radical, deranged, delusional fantasy world religious televangelist Pat Robertson, of course known from the 700 Club, which has been around for decades at this point, he did a mostly accurate and pretty sober and precise assessment of police killings, including specifically of the killing in Minnesota of Dante Wright. It's almost, I'm kind of joking here. It's almost like Pat Robertson became woke. And I'm joking because I don't actually use that term. But check out this video. Pat Robertson's co-host pointing out the entire taser versus gun confusion that's being claimed is a terrible explanation for the officer involved in the shooting. Tasers and guns are kept on opposite sides of police utility belts. Guns and tasers feel totally different. And then Pat Robertson, I venture to say here, delivers an impassioned statement about the issue facing our country. Check this out, talking about George Floyd and Derek Chauvin, the Dante Wright shooting, police, and more. I don't know. It's Pat Robertson. Take a look.
Also, I want to say, I think a lot of people are thinking like I was, that both the gun and the taser would be put on your dominant side, but it's not that way.
Yeah, but they have to cross where they have them different.
So you actually have to reach across yourself to
you
get
feel
the
difference. I
yeah,
mean,
it's definitely
there's just no comparison. As I say, they're not making tasers in this yellow color anymore. They're making in black. They're making them yellow. Now, how she made the difference was she shot that poor guy to death, saying, "This is what I thought. I thought was my taser." And if you can't tell the difference in the feel of those things, it's crazy. Anyhow, she deserves. But I am pro-police, folks. I think we need the police. We need their servants, and they do a good job. But if they don't stop this onslaught, they cannot do this. The police in Virginia picked up a lieutenant in the Army and began to give him trouble. And our state police are highly trained. But why they don't stop this? And this thing is going on in Minnesota, but the Derek Chauvin, I mean, they ought to put him under the jail. He has caused so much trouble by kneeling on the death of George Floyd. It's just, on his neck. It's just terrible what's happening. And the police, why don't they open their eyes to what the public relations are? They've got to stop this stuff.
So there is Pat Robertson at the age of 91 years coming across a good take. Somehow it happened. Now, okay, some of what Pat Robertson is saying seems to be that lots of this stuff just makes police look bad versus it's actually bad. That I understand that maybe there's an aspect of that here. I've never seen anything like this from Pat Robertson. Now, this doesn't make Pat Robertson a progressive beacon of hope. But as he pointed out, even Pat Robertson seems to realize that the situation in the country has become completely absurd. There's an opposite interpretation as well. If Pat Robertson is actually able to see this situation for what it is, doesn't it make it more likely that he realizes all of the other stuff he's saying is bogus, but he says it anyway in order to get donations or clicks or ratings or to placate his right-wing religious audience? I don't know. The other thing is there are some instances in Pat Robertson's past where he'll say something kind of logical and then there will be blowback and then he'll just backtrack a week later. I think this happened once with cannabis legalization where he said something that was pretty logical. His audience went nuts. And next thing we knew, he had basically recanted his view. But I do think that the one maybe consistent takeaway is that there are lots of people who, when they're able to separate themselves from their partisanship and their tribalism, they realize at a deep gut level what's going on with guns and or with police shootings is not okay. They get it. Then very often, after they have the gut reaction, they turn on Fox News or whatever, and they realize, oh, there's partisan talking points I have to get in line with. But there's like this brief moment of clarity that they seem to have. Then the NRA comes in and they say, no, this is evidence we need more guns. Police should have more guns and people should have more guns and they should be easier to buy. And then they mostly fall in line. But many of these people, I think for a moment, get it. Anyway, no need to now start praising Pat Robertson more than he deserves, but it's an interesting segment Certainly not something I was expecting to see. And maybe there's like some glimmer of hope here that there's maybe an opportunity to get consensus on the issue of guns and police if we can separate people from their reflexive partisan reactions. And that's not easy. There's a reason that if you go back to the Sandy Hook shooting, which was, what was that, 2012? It's insane that it's been almost a decade. If so, you go back to the Sandy Hook shooting, and you had an 88 to 90% approval rating from the country saying we need 100% universal background checks. It didn't happen. Even with that level of agreement, it didn't happen. And we have almost nothing in this country where you have 88 to 90% agreement. But people had the gut reaction. Wait a second. There are some gun transactions where you don't need a background check. That doesn't make sense at a fundamental level. Then in came the NRA. In came the Republican politicians, and nothing got done. So maybe the takeaway here is not Pat Robertson, beacon of woke or beacon of hope or whatever, but that there's an opportunity there, brief as it may be, where there may be more agreement on these issues than it sometimes seems.